The entire IKEA business model was originally engineered for a 1970s suburban family with a station wagon or a pickup truck parked right in the driveway. But if you live in a third-floor walk-up in downtown Manhattan, Chicago, or Miami without a car, that $150 flat-pack desk can easily cost you north of $420 before you even tighten the first cam lock. This is not just broad economic inflation at play. IKEA has systematically priced out the very demographics that built the brand, turning what used to be clever, affordable Scandinavian utility into an expensive, single-use nightmare. For decades, the unspoken contract between IKEA and its customers was straightforward. You traded a Saturday afternoon, wrestled with a confusing manual, and turned a cheap hex key until your fingers were blistered. In exchange, you walked away with functional, clean, modern furniture at a price that did not drain your checking account. It worked because the math made sense for both sides. Today, that economic agreement is completely broken. What happened behind closed doors is textbook corporate skimflation, where the price on the barcode spikes while the structural integrity inside the box silently vanishes. If you walk into a location in Paramus, New Jersey, or browse the warehouse floor in Burbank, California, the historical pricing on the iconic Billy bookcase tells the entire story. Back in 2019, that base unit retailed for $59. Over the subsequent inflationary wave, that exact same shelf climbed to $89, and in dense urban metro markets, it peaked at $109. That represents an 84% price surge on an entry-level item originally marketed as an absolute staple for budget-conscious college students and first-time apartment renters. Paying higher prices during widespread inflation is frustrating enough, but what happened to the raw materials inside the purchase feels like an outright shakedown. Pick up a Billy bookcase manufactured a decade ago and weigh it against one rolling off the shipping pallets today. The newer version is roughly 25% lighter. They did not engineer that weight reduction through cutting-edge aerospace materials. They did it by literally hollowing out the core of the furniture. In earlier production runs, major structural panels were fabricated from dense, compressed particle board. Informative, over the past few years, IKEA massively expanded the deployment of what the industrial packaging sector calls paper honeycomb core. If you take a handsaw to a standard lax side table or a popular calyx helving cube, you won't find continuous timber or even dense wood shavings. The entire internal cavity is composed of recycled corrugated paper folded into hexagonal cells, sandwiched between two thin exterior veneers of printed foil. You are effectively paying hard-earned money for hollow structural cardboard wrapped in simulated wood grain. When you remove that much mass and internal density, the real-world durability collapses immediately. Annoyed consumer forums across metropolitan hubs like Austin and Philadelphia are packed with the exact same complaints. Renters load ordinary paperback books onto these newer shelves, and within 6 to 8 months, the horizontal spans visibly bow under basic everyday weight. Try moving apartments just one time and the reality gets worse. The moment you back a steel machine screw out of hollow paper honeycomb, the internal threading shreds into loose fibers. When you arrive at your new rental and try to tighten that fastener down, the screw simply spins in empty space. The piece of furniture you just hauled across town becomes structural landfill before the lease is even up. IKEA shifted from producing durable, low-cost starter furniture to manufacturing high-margin disposable goods, all while charging buyers significantly more than previous generations paid for real composite wood. Yet, degrading the internal materials is only half of the equation. It's the physical layout of the store itself that will psychologically engineered to turn an intended $50 trip into a $300 checkout tab. The second you step inside an IKEA warehouse in Brooklyn, New York, or out in Houston, Texas, you leave standard retail layouts. Traditional supermarkets and department stores rely on wide, grid-based aisles with straight sight lines to the exits and cash registers. IKEA intentionally routes you through a serpentine, one-way showroom track that stretches for nearly 1.5 miles. You can't just walk straight to the warehouse aisle, grab your flat box, and check out. You're forced to navigate dozens of fully staged living rooms, faux bedrooms, and warm, brightly lit kitchens. Every 90-degree turn is calculated to slow down your walking pace, disrupt your spatial orientation, and distort your sense of elapsed time. Along that mile-and-a-half path, they place open dump bins filled with $2 lint rollers, $5 scented candles, paper napkins, and kitchen utensils. By the time you finally make it to the ground floor self-serve warehouse, your yellow tote bag is already loaded down with dozens of dollars worth of impulse items you never walked in to buy. If you choose to skip the physical showroom entirely to order online, the retail trap simply shifts to aggressive logistics surcharges. Consider the actual delivery economics for someone renting in San Francisco, Boston, or New York City. You spot a basic work desk listed online for $120. That price appears competitive until you proceed to the final checkout screen. Because the flat pack box exceeds standard courier dimensions, basic threshold delivery to your front stoop frequently starts at $49. If you live in a third-floor apartment and require delivery directly into your living room, that handling fee easily jumps to $79 or even $119 depending on the exact zip code. If that shipment arrives with damaged corners, crushed particle board, or missing cam locks, resolving the issue requires either renting a vehicle to haul the boxes back to a suburban location yourself or paying another scheduled freight pickup fee. You easily end up spending over $240 on a $120 hollow desk, and it is still sitting on your floor in 3 separate cardboard boxes. That dynamic leads directly into the core psychological illusion of modern retail, known throughout behavioral economics as the IKEA effect. In foundational research out of Harvard Business School, investigators demonstrated that when people invest their own manual labor into constructing a product, they value the finished object up to 63% more than an identical pre-assembled version. Flat pack retailers turn this cognitive bias into a core operational model, effectively outsourcing their factory assembly lines straight onto your living room floor. Consider the actual monetary value of that time. Across the United States, average median hourly wages for working professionals and tradespeople sit anywhere between $28 and $38 an hour. When you spend 4 frustrating hours on your floor sorting through poorly rendered diagrams, stripped hardware, and soft composite dowels, you effectively donate upwards of $120 to $150 in unpaid labor directly into corporate profit margins. Because modern flat pack lines rely heavily on low-density core paper, the piece remains functional for essentially one single assembly cycle. The moment your annual lease expires and you try disassembling the unit to fit through a narrow apartment doorway, the joint housings strip out and the veneer chips off. You pay double the retail price when factoring in shipping fees and personal labor, all for a temporary fixture that will not survive a second apartment move. You do not have to swear off buying budget furniture altogether. You simply have to stop buying into their default distribution system. With a few deliberate adjustments to how you source and inspect materials, you can furnish an entire apartment with durable goods while keeping substantial money in your bank account. The first rule is learning how to read production specs directly on mobile apps before spending a single dollar. When viewing any product page, bypass the stage photography and expand the materials and care tab. If the specifications list fiberboard, printed acrylic paint, or paper filling, skip it. That is internal industry terminology for hollow honeycomb paper that will inevitably bow under sustained load. Instead, filter your catalog searches exclusively for solid pine, solid birch, or solid beech. Look at staple product lines like Hemnes or Ivar. While an untreated solid pine Ivar shelf or a solid timber Hemnes dresser carries a marginally higher retail price than a paper-filled alternative, it consists of continuous solid wood. When you drive a steel fastener into real lumber, the screw threads bite directly into the grain. You can build it today, disassemble it 3 years down the road, and bolt it back together in a new apartment without the structural frame turning into sawdust. The second strategy relies on local secondary market timing in high-density urban areas. In high-turnover rental markets like Seattle, Boston, Denver, or Washington, D.C., timing is everything. Around late May during university graduation weeks, and again at the end of August when citywide rental leases turn over simultaneously, thousands of tenants look to liquidate heavy furniture rather than pay moving companies to transport it excess. During the final 5 days of any calendar month, check local listings on platforms like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. Tenants routinely list solid pine dressers and genuine birch tables for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar just to clear floor space before final move-out inspections. You can pick up a $350 solid timber piece for $60 to $70, fully built, completely bypassing hours of unpaid assembly time. If you already own older flat pack furniture missing a specific cam lock, bracket, or shelf pen, never buy generic replacement hardware kits online. IKEA maintains a dedicated global spare parts program on its website that is entirely free of charge. Every single assembly manual prints an explicit 6-digit part number adjacent to each piece of hardware. Type that 6-digit part number into their online replacement portal, confirm the request, and the logistics system will ship the replacement parts directly to your mailbox via standard parcel delivery with 0 postage fees and 0 invoice costs. If a drawer runner fails or a shelf support goes missing during a move, make the supply chain replace the hardware at their expense instead of sending the entire unit to a landfill. Run the direct financial comparison between both purchasing methods for a standard 1-bedroom apartment. If you buy a new paper cord desk, a particle board bookcase, and a veneer dresser online with standard room of choice delivery, you pay roughly $450 in retail base goods, $120 in shipping surcharges and local sales tax, easily pushing total out-of-pocket costs past $600 for short lifespan items. Take the alternative route. Source those same items locally in solid pine Hemnes or Ivar builds across secondary marketplace listings. You pick up the solid desk for $40, the continuous pine shelf for $30, and the solid timber dresser for $50. That is $120 total for real lumber. Rent an open bed pickup truck from Home Depot or Lowe's for $19 for the first 75 minutes, spend $10 in fuel, and transport the fully built pieces directly home. You completely furnish the room with solid wood that will hold up for a decade for roughly $150 total out of pocket. That leaves $450 in liquid cash sitting in your bank account without spending a single weekend afternoon battling poorly labeled hardware. To see why flat pack furniture degraded so rapidly, look at the executive shifts at the top of the corporate hierarchy. When founder Ivar passed away in 2018, the original operating ethos shifted substantially. For decades, Kamprad enforced legendary corporate frugality, consistently pushing supply chains to optimize manufacturing efficiencies to keep shelf prices low. Following that transition, the corporate umbrella, split between retail operator Inga Group and the inter-IKEA global supply parent, faced unprecedented market competition. Digital retailers like Amazon and Wayfair heavily optimized fast doorstep logistics, while direct-to-consumer platforms flooded ports with budget household items. Sprawling suburban warehouse footprints covering hundreds of thousands of square feet in places like Long Island or North Texas turned into massive operational overhead to heat, power, and staff. Disappointedly, rather than fundamentally redesigning their physical real estate model or compressing executive profit margins, corporate leadership took the fast route, stripping structural mass down to hollow paper cores and introducing tiered logistics fees, pushing operational friction straight onto consumer balance sheets. When prices jumped anywhere from 40 to 80% across staple catalog items between 2021 and 2023, foot traffic dropped off. Overall retail volume slowed down, and global operating profits contracted by roughly 1/3. That prompted heavy public relations rollouts across major business publications, announcing widespread retail price cuts across thousands of catalog items. Yet, the underlying math remains clear. When a manufacturer raises the price of an entry-level item from $80 to $140 over a 2-year span, and then rolls out a widely publicized $20 price reduction, you are still paying $40 above historical baseline pricing for an item that carries noticeably less actual wood fiber than it did 5 years ago. At the end of the day, flat pack convenience is only truly cheap if personal time carries no financial value, regional shipping costs cost nothing, and you never plan to change physical addresses again. The moment you factor in high delivery surcharges, hours of unpaid home assembly, and structural degradation after a single lease cycle, standard budget retail turns into a recurring subscription for disposable paper furniture. True value comes down to understanding raw material density, identifying solid timber, and keeping both your time and your money firmly under your own control.